So can everybody see the screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Title, fantastic. So don't hesitate to ask me any questions as we go along. Let me see what we're doing here. Okay, so here are the things we're going to talk about. I'm going to keep it very practical and simple, since most of us have been on it in one way or another, as either as a participant, maybe leading some meetings. So first, we're going to talk about how to set Zoom up, how to set up Zoom, particularly on a computer, on a desktop, a PC, at your office or at home. I can even guide you how to do it on the phone, on a device. The second, we're going to talk about how it works, just the basics of how the Zoom platform works for virtual meetings. And then third, we'll get more into the other features so that you understand how to use Zoom effectively, particularly if you are organizing a meeting, if you're going to lead the meeting, how to use certain functions in Zoom that will ensure that the meeting runs smoothly and organized and so on. So. All right, the easiest thing to do instead of using the browser for your Zoom meetings is to download the app. And so if you go to zoom.us, there'll be prompts to download the application. And as long as you have enough memory on your computer, you won't have any problems downloading it. And so the screen will look like this. It's called the Download Center, and it just has so the application is called a client, the Zoom client. So anyway, you'll see that's just like this. There's a download button, and you download it. And once it's on your computer, it'll be on your desktop. You can just click on your desktop when you click the Zoom icon on your desktop to open it. And this is the screen that opens. And so this screen is just very simple, right? Starting from the encircled area here, new meeting, is if you want to start the meeting in the moment and then invite people to it. If you've received a meeting ID or a link, you can hit join and then put in the meeting ID or whatnot. Most people don't use meeting IDs anymore. You just click on the link and it's open, so it pulls you into the session. And then
Alberto, could I
yes.
just ask, for this meeting, did you click on a link and come into the meeting?
I did. The link that David sent, since he didn't put any restrictions on joining the meeting, I just clicked on the link, and then the join meeting came on the screen, and I clicked on that, and that's where my video and audio options appeared.
Because I just wanted to mention, when I picked it up from Richard's email, it wasn't a hot link, and so I wasn't able to do it.
It wasn't my email, I don't think. Did I send you that? So you didn't use David's link, is that correct?
No. No, and now I see why it was a problem.
Also, the app, right? If you actually use the app and hit the app, it'll recognize the hot link part.
Yeah. The app is a practical way to do it, because sometimes even if you do it on the browser, that's how originally I started doing it. And what it does is whether it's the browser or the app client, it still gives you the option to put it on your calendar. So you get like an Outlook or an iPhone calendar option, and then you can put in emails for the people that you want to send it to. From your phone, you can put in people in your contact list, so phone numbers, and it'll text message it to them. At any rate, if you when you're scheduling a meeting, you want to click on this button right here that has the calendar icon, and when you schedule it, we'll go through the features on that function in just a second, but when you schedule it, it gives you the opportunity to put in emails for people who should participate. For example, a meeting in the future, not in the moment, right? There are two ways to start a meeting and add people to your meeting, like invite people to participate. It's in the moment, so you just you're gonna tell someone, hey, we're gonna meet today at 5, fine, and I'll send you the link to your email or to your phone. And so you come in here, if you're the organizer, you click on new meeting, and then you basically are saying the meeting is now. You can title the meeting if you want or whatnot, and then you invite your attendees from that screen as you're setting your meeting, and then they get the link, and then they can join in, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Otherwise, if you want to schedule a future meeting for like the next day, the next week, the next month, you use this function down here, the schedule. And then you're able to set the date, the time, and the duration. And so let me move into that part of it. So this is what it looks like when you're scheduling a meeting. So, you know, the upper, if you look on the left side first, this is really the same screen. It's just broken into two pieces. But this is the top portion. And so you just, you know, give a name for the topic like David did for this meeting, Zoom training. And then you can, of course, you know, set the date, the actual time. It should be set for your time zone. So, you know, mountain time or whatnot. And then you can actually, you know, set the duration of it, right? Unless it's a recurring meeting, you know, you don't worry about that button. The important parts are enabling the video capabilities for everyone involved. So I usually just go in here and click on for host and on for participants, right? You can do it once you're in the Zoom meeting, but it's easier just to enable that from the beginning. So as you experienced when you came into the meeting, you had the option to join by video and audio. And that's just easier to do it, to set that up in advance so you're not fumbling around with that. And then the same with the audio, right? I just do telephone and computer audio instead of, I just do that in case someone has to call in. For example, if Pam's calling in from the road, she can call in from her telephone, right? And when you send the invite, it usually gives instructions for what number to call in, a toll-free number to call in through telephone. So, or obviously it has a link for, you know, video and audio. Unless it's some kind of meeting that you really need to keep private for a select audience, you don't need to have a meeting password. And then here's a calendar option. So if you click Google,
Alberto?
Yes.
Let me interject something here.
Sure.
You're talking about licensed scheduling. If a person is using the free version of Zoom, there are a couple of things that they cannot do. One of them is they will not be able to call in by telephone because the telephone will not be able to get a password. Secondly, if they're using a free version of Zoom, the host will be required to use a password. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I wasn't aware of that. In fact, you reminded me of something else. On the free version, you're also limited to about 45 minutes. And if you get the version of Zoom that isn't free, like the Next Level Up or even the Pro account, you have unlimited time on your duration of your meeting. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you're using the free version and your meeting's going to go an hour and a half or even an hour, it'll cut you off. You can reschedule, you can schedule a new one, but instead of having to do that, just, you know, I would opt for the version, the paid version.
Question, how much do you pay for if you don't choose the free version? How expensive is that?
You know, I wish I would have looked that up. I don't know, Reinhardt, because I'm using the university's account. So we were able to get the Pro account. And so I think if you just go into the Zoom website, so zoom.us, the price points will be listed on that website.
Alberto?
Yes, sir.
I know the answer to that.
Okay, great.
I do too.
And because we're basically about $15 a month.
Okay.
Per host. And Citrus Cities has one of those, and actually Atlanta's considering getting another one as membership, as incoming social chair. So that's the answer. It's about, you don't need one, Ray, though, if you're getting invited to the meeting. It's the host. It's based on the host.
But I just want to interject one other thing. If you buy a yearly membership to Zoom, you save 2 months.
I have one other question, David. When you send out the invitation, there are a whole bunch of telephone numbers listed below for certain parts of the country. What is that all about?
Zoom generates them automatically because it doesn't know where any one person is going to be. And you can actually pick any one of those telephone numbers and use it. Doesn't matter.
What would you use them for?
To call in without using a computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's if you won't be using your phone or your like the video on your phone or your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, typically everybody's now using the computer for, with their video like we are today.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for adding those comments, gentlemen. Appreciate that. And Elena, good question, Reinhardt. And so let's move on into the features of Zoom. I'm sure you've all seen this screen before. So this is the home screen for Zoom once you're in the meeting. And I wanted to touch on a couple points here. First of all, when you're in the meeting, you have these functions, your audio. You can mute yourself down here as well as in the window. So in the tile that you see your photo in, if you move your mouse, your cursor up to the upper right-hand side, you have a mute button. So I shouldn't keep talking when I mute myself. I just muted myself there, and then I unmuted myself. As a host, you also have the ability to mute people and unmute people. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you have these other options up here. You have a drop down. So, stop video, rename, or as, you can do other things there. And so now whoops, I went to the wrong screen. I jumped ahead a little bit. Oh, what am I doing here? Somehow I jumped ahead. I don't know how
So that was a good session. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for attending. So, and then of course you can stop your video here. So you have your audio visual here, and then you have your invite. You can also invite people from the meeting here. You click on here and invite people. So a new window will pop up. It won't take you out of Zoom. It'll just have a window pop up, and you can invite people through email. And then you're actually your participants are here. So if you're expecting a certain number of people, that'll show here. We're going to talk about the waiting room in a little bit, and that's where you also get notifications in this part. What I did to share this presentation is I clicked on this button. We'll discuss that in a little bit. And then, of course, the last thing we'll be discussing today is how to use the chat room, and that's so people can communicate through chat and not interrupt the audio, the discussion in the meeting. But people can, and also the host can say, hey, by a show of hands or by comments in the chat, how many people have experienced this or that. And so, and then of course, as David started doing, or Richard, you have the record option here. And then of course, to end the meeting, you can end it or you can leave the meeting if you're a participant by clicking down here. So those are the basic essential features of Zoom. And so you can, and then, by clicking participants here, typically what happens is when someone wants to share the screen, or someone, or people are waiting to come in, you have to be, cognizant of the notifications coming through here, right? And so you have to, unless you set the settings when you schedule the meeting, you have to come in here to enable some settings for people to participate. And then of course, if you haven't set the share screen for more than one person to share screen, you have to come in and set that here. You just click on this arrow and it'll give you a screen that, like a little pop-up window that you can adjust your settings. Any questions on the main screen or any comments? Okay. Inviting people to your meeting, as I said earlier, is as simple as, once you're in the meeting, is as simple as coming to the invite button. And so you have your, this is where you manage your participants, and then this is where you can invite people to attend. And so, and again, you're just basically plugging in emails at this point. If you're using your phone, you can, I believe you can, I haven't invited anyone from within a meeting on my phone, but I believe you're plugging in mostly telephone numbers from your contact list. And you can probably put in emails too, but I think it's easier to put in telephone numbers from your phone if you're using Zoom on your phone. All right, let's move into how to use Zoom effectively. So the other features that can help you, especially if you're the one organizing the meeting. That's primarily what this is for. So the audio is really important to manage when you're in a meeting. And so typically throughout the week, I'm in meetings that range in different sizes of participants. And what I notice that if I'm not the host myself, I notice that other hosts have done it as well. If you have more than 10 people in a meeting or even more than 5, as you heard earlier, background noises come through, right? Dogs bark, kids are talking, sirens in the background, whatever it might be. And and that can interrupt the discussion or the thought process of whoever's presenting or talking. And so one of the best practices to use is to either inform people that you're going to have everybody muted as the presentation begins, and you want to list that in the beginning of the meeting, or simply ask everybody to mute themselves. You can also, in the settings when you schedule the meeting, just simply leave it at any participant is muted as they come into the meeting, right? And so if anyone joins the meeting late, or people are going to be joining in, in the first 15 minutes of the meeting, and you're going to start promptly at the certain top of the hour, you want to leave that setting so that everybody's muted upon entering the meeting. And then, of course, when they speak, they can always unmute themselves. So here's where you can come in and basically look at more advanced features of the audio visual. To tell you the truth, I never really messed with this at all. Using the waiting room. So I'll give you an example of how I used the waiting room recently. This isn't really necessary unless you're trying to screen who's coming in. So if we're having a meeting like ours, you don't have to have people come into a waiting room. It's an extra step that's unnecessary, quite frankly. Where this function is useful is if you have certain people. Let's say, for example, you're doing interviews for someone, either employment or a board, or in late May, but almost a month ago, for what I do at UNM, I had entrepreneurial teams that were both students and alumni from New Mexico Tech, UNM, and MSU, were pitching their plans to start their business to a panel of judges. It was all on Zoom. And so I had about 6 teams, and they were all staggered. There were half-an-hour presentations, 15 minutes in between each. And so they all had the same link to the meeting, but I encouraged them to sign on about 10 minutes before they were scheduled to present, so that they would have everything, ready, their slide deck and so on. And, but I wouldn't allow them to enter the session. They were in the waiting room. And so as soon as the team that was presenting completed their presentation and their Q&A with the judges, then I went ahead and removed them from the meeting, or they removed themselves. And then I wouldn't bring in the new team out of the waiting room until it was time to have them start their presentation about 2 minutes before. That way they could share the screen and then introduce themselves and begin the presentation. And that enabled my judges to do a bio break if they had to use the restroom or get a cup of coffee or water, because everybody's working from home. And then also, and just quite frankly, enabled us to get a breather before the new team came in. And a lot of the judges were also filling out evaluation forms that they were scoring the teams on. And so that's how the waiting room function really worked for me. Again, if you're interviewing people or having meetings with individuals in a scheduled timeline or time frame, you can use the waiting room so that you have one link for the meeting, and then people join the meeting, and they just end up in a waiting room. That's all. All it says to them is you're going to be in a waiting room, and then the organizer will allow you to come in. And then this is what it looks like on your screen when you're the organizer. It shows, again, going back to this screen right here, you're going to get notifications out of your participants function there. This is going to be at the bottom of your screen down here, right? So you want to pay attention to that, and it'll pop up and say you have people waiting. And then when you actually click on that, you'll get this screen that comes to your right-hand side of your screen. If you're facing the screen, it'll pop up on the right-hand side, to the side of the screen, and it'll indicate who is waiting, right? Obviously, these are people that have received a link from you. And now, if someone else has forwarded a link to your meeting and you don't necessarily want them there, you can leave them in the waiting room, right? Unless you're just leaving it open for people like the public. But otherwise, sometimes people forward meetings and it's not, that person isn't part of your audience, your target audience. They can stay in the waiting room. Or again, if you want them to wait for a certain time that you want them to come in, then you can have them come in. Another thing that I used it for example, when these entrepreneurial teams were giving presentations, I left people in the waiting room until the presentations were over, so it wouldn't interrupt the presentation, right? And so, because sometimes people come in and their microphone isn't muted, or something else is happening in the background in the visual, and it's disruptive to the rest of the participants. And so it is your way to lead the meeting effectively and control. And that's why I affectionately call it Zoom's crowd control.
Question I have, Alberto.
Yes, Reinhard.
I understand Dr. Z joined us, but I don't see him on my screen. How come?
He got off.
Yeah,
he didn't join then.
He probably joined, and then he probably he might have just left the meeting for some reason, or he might have had a glitch in his computer, and then but he could have clicked the same link, come back on, and so now if Richard as the organizer, who set the settings, or even me now, who that Richard made me the organizer, once we were in the meeting, either one of us would see, in this case myself, I would see down on that screen, down here, I would see, down here, that David Shee is waiting. And so I would have to go into the, click on this, click on the waiting room function, and it would take me here. And then this would say David Shee, and I would say admit, right? And then he would join the meeting.
So if you don't admit them, they're in dead space, basically.
They're in dead space, yeah. They're just waiting in the virtual waiting room, living room. And then this is, if you have more than one, this will populate down here. And it'll say,
background music, nothing you can do for them. They're in the dead space.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be able to admit them, otherwise they stay there. So if you're not aware of it, because you have a presentation going on and you're the moderator or you're leading the presentation, what will happen is they'll stay in there if you're not aware of those notifications or whatnot.
That's why it's important to have maybe one person hosting and responsible for the content of what's being presented.
Yes.
And then another person who's paying attention to those features. Like right now, if we were set up in that way, whoever that person was might call David Shee and say, are you having a problem, and try and troubleshoot them getting in.
That is always more effective. I agree with you. More effective than just one person, right?
Just because I sent a chat to David when he was still on, but he didn't respond. So
yeah,
I think he was having trouble using the.
He was connected already. He was in. Yeah, and so just so we all know, as we approach the annual meeting, we're going to have a few different co-hosts. So we shouldn't have any trouble monitoring that. And myself and Dave Bagley will be two of the co-hosts. And Alana, if you want to be, let us know. So.
Well, I might troubleshoot so that if that kind of thing were to happen at the meeting, somebody comes in and drops out. If I had a list with their phone number, I could call them and say, this is Alana, you having trouble connecting, can I help you?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always important, in leading a meeting like this, it's important to establish those roles before the meeting, right? So if David, Richard, and Len, if you three are going to do that role for the sister city meetings, I would decide on what role each one of you are going to take. That way you're not fumbling through the meeting with that. Because I've seen that before in other meetings I'm in with more than one organizer or moderator, and it looks sloppy when people are fumbling, over themselves. And all it requires is, as we all know here, it just requires some communication up front. But I do think it's better than just one person trying to multitask, with all of that. Unless it's a small meeting, of course. Any more other questions on this slide, Reinhard or anybody? Okay.
We're not going to use it.
To clarify that David was not in the waiting room because there was no waiting room. So whatever occurred, it wasn't because he was waiting to get in.
That is correct.
We're not going to use a waiting room for any of our meetings in the near future.
Yeah. I
think we'd have to have a reason, like Alberto correctly outlined, where you have a reason to keep people out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I call it crowd control. I mean, it's just, you're really just controlling the flow of participants coming in. But if that's not necessary, like in a board meeting, and everyone, whoever's getting the link is meant to participate in that meeting, then you don't need to have. It's an unnecessary step. Yeah. So
we're probably going to give everybody a chance, 5 minutes, first 5 minutes or so, a chance to say hi to everybody, and then we're going to mute everybody. So, and then that's when Pam or others will take over the meeting, and they'll be busy doing that while some of us will be making sure people can get in and out.
Yep. That's a good way to handle it. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So, let's move into the share screen function, and this is how you can share your visual aids, visual information, as I'm doing today with the slide deck, with the presentation. And so this is your main screen, and the share screen function down here. You can probably see my mouse as I'm moving it around. This green button right here is the share screen function. If you are organizing the meeting, it's important to set the settings as you schedule the meeting to be able to enable multiple participants to share presentations. If you want multiple people to share information, if you're just going to be doing it yourself as the host, you're going to be doing a presentation yourself or sharing an agenda or whatnot, then you can just keep it to yourself as the host, sharing the screen. But usually, what is a good practice is to enable multiple participants to share screen in case different people want to share visuals or or documents or whatever is being discussed, like any kind of visual data or visual information.
In case of our annual meeting, just to clarify, there will be people sharing screens. There's the mayor's talks, and then there's also the wall-in.
Exactly. So that's where you want to be able to enable multiple participants on this through clicking on here. When you schedule the meeting, you can also do it during the meeting. The host is the person that can click on there and enable multiple participants. It's a really simple step. So
yeah, and Dave and I were practicing with that today, Alana. So we can share some of that information to you. But really, we'll figure out all that. We're going to have a dry run next week, I think. So we'll let Alberto continue. Go ahead, Alberto.
All right, thank you. And then so when you click on that button, it pulls up a screen showing your desktop, the different files you have open on your desktop. And so you need what you want to do is you want to have, for example, the PowerPoint file that I had open. I left it open instead of closing the document and having to go through my files. I just left it open. And so even if it was minimized on my desktop on my screen, it was open. So when I went in there, as you saw me kind of sharing my screen earlier, this is what you get. This is what it looked like, right? You can scroll down. This button right here on the right-hand side. Scroll down to see what's available, and you basically select that file. If it's titled Screen 1, it'll be Screen 1, and then you click Share. And then what will happen is when you do that, it'll basically pop up the presentation like I did, and once you open that PowerPoint presentation, that you can go into screen show, slideshow in other words, and then start running the slides full screen like I've been doing. If it's a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of image or graph or whatnot, it'll just pop up in the screen. And then
Alberto, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so screen 2, the second slide that's there showing on the screen right now.
Yes.
When I was doing the tutorial several times in a row, there was a step where she went from one screen to this screen, the screen that's the same as screen 2, and I could never get there. How do you get to that particular screen?
Did she open up 2 screens, or did she just move from one to another?
This was a tutorial from Zoom, okay? And she was sharing screens, and she went from one screen to the second screen, the one here where you have your arrow right now.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
I don't know how you get to that screen. How do I get to that screen?
I don't know. I've never done that before.
Right.
And so that's something I would have to look into to find out. And then, but that's a good question. I haven't used that before. I've only opened one file and then presented that in the meeting. And then.
Well, I'm not talking about the screen sharing part. What I'm talking about is in a tutorial, learning how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
That particular screen came up and she was doing all kinds of things on that screen with settings and invites and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
get to that screen.
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll take a look at that and figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Alberto, I want to mention, since at the bottom there, do you see where it says share computer sound and optimize for full screen video clip?
Yes.
I had watched a Zoom video that says when you're going to share, click those always.
Okay.
Because it helps.
Okay. Yeah. Is that so? If you're playing like video, yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for pointing that out. I've never used those either, but yeah, it's a good observation. It'd be good to use those. And then to get out of, like, when I finish this presentation, what I'll end up doing, so that our pictures over here are all enlarged again, is I just will exit. I'll say stop. It'll say stop share down here, and then that removes whatever I have on the screen, and just all you see are the pictures of people in the meeting. So those are the the 3 steps, right? Click the share screen button, select your file, and then when you're done, you go back here and click that share screen button again, and then at the lower right hand side it'll say stop share or whatnot, and then that'll remove what you have on the screen. The last thing I wanted to share in terms of functionality, and this might be useful in our meetings or any other meetings that you're involved with, is the chat room. And again, this is something that you can control. You can disable the chat room if you don't want people chatting on the side. You want everybody to be engaged, focused. It could also be a tool in case you want participation from those involved in the meeting, and you want to ask questions like by show of hands or by show of comments in the chat room. What percentage of people, what's the percentage of your time that you dedicate to reaching out to your sister city personnel? And someone can type in 10% of my time, 50% of the week, or whatever, right? Or you could so you can kind of do those quick little surveys, and it's a good tool for participating. When you're in the chat session, when you click on chat, it'll pop up on the right hand side, kind of like where the waiting room information is. Everything will pop up on the right hand side, and you'll see the chat discussions are just a rolling comments that keep populating as people type things in, and they're real time. So as soon as you type them in and hit enter, it populates it. There are 2 options. You can chat to everyone in the meeting, or you can select someone individually that's a participant in the meeting and chat between you and that person. And they can send you information that's just for you. It's just a private 2-way discussion, or it's with everyone in the meeting, right? So if you have new people and you want them to use the chat function, you may want to mention that to them just so that they're aware of it. The default is send it to everyone. And you have to, you just have to, there's a drop down option. You have to click on, an individual and select who that person is if you want someone in particular.
Alberto?
Yep.
I have a question again.
Yep.
So one of the things that's available with this subscription that I'm looking at right now, which is the first level, which is practically $15 a month or 2 months free if you get a year. There's the possibility of doing polling. And I've been in Zoom meetings where they do polling. And it seems really interesting and really effective. And I think it would be very useful for sister cities at this time to have a short poll about the people who are participating in our annual meeting. And from my perspective as potential social chair, I would like to be able to get some information from people, maybe present certain ideas and see which ones are the most interesting to them about things that we can do in the present situation to have social connections through sister cities. So have you had any experience with setting up the poll?
I haven't. I think it'd be interesting to use it, but I have not.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
Alberto. When you're in a board meeting, you want to vote on something, what do you do?
Well,
because you won't see each other.
Just based on my experience, you have 2 options. One, you can say by show of hands, and someone has to tally the hands, or and if you're recording the meeting, it's recorded. Or if let's just say you have 12 to 15 people in the meeting, you say type in what your vote is, right? It won't be anonymous because people can see who's typing in what. So and that doesn't matter, then so be it. But you can use the chat room. So you type in your vote, yay, nay, or whatever the vote is. You type it into the chat box, and so or if it's just a matter of show of hands, then it can be a visual, right? That is the way that's how I've used it so far. I don't know if the option that Elena's talking about, the polling, is another way to use it, but I don't have experience with that. Yeah.
No, I don't. The polling isn't really good for those kinds of votes you just described. I think what you just described is the best.
Okay.
Raising hands if everybody can see everybody, or
Yep.
type in the chat. The polling is more to get information from people,
Okay.
not to vote yes or no.
Okay.
Alberto, maybe you can
Yes.
share with Reinhardt about the reactions button then, where you can raise your hand.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. You can go, you know what? I forget where that is. I know it's,
At the bottom next to the record button for
oh, okay.
right
That's
next to
right.
the button probably.
They're little, you know, like the smiley faces that you see on the text nowadays and those kinds of things. So that you have those kind of, those little, icons or images in one is a hand, right? Or I think it's a thumbs up or a hand like that. And
Right.
so that you can use that to yeah, exactly. Just like that to, for, you know, a thumbs up vote. I don't think they have a thumbs down, but I guess if for any of the yays or yeses or in favor of, we could use that function that Dave's using on
Well,
his.
let's practice. Ray, do you see it there? Do you see your reactions button down at the bottom? Do you have one? You see it?
I don't know if anyone can see it while I have the slide deck up. Well, at least
Yes,
mine.
yes, you
I
can. You
just
have
put
to move.
mine up there. Can you see mine?
See your reaction, but I just want to, you have to see
Yeah, I see your
Can you see
hand.
that?
Ray
Oh, I
can,
see.
Thumbs
Oh,
up. I just put in. Can other people see that?
yes.
Yeah,
I
I see
see
what
it,
you're
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
And the other
did you-
option is
Let's all react to something. I'll put a thumbs up. Everybody, I want to make sure Ray can see that.
Okay.
But the one about putting your hand up, that's under participants. If you go to participants
It's right in the same
and
reaction.
then you go over to your own name, you can raise your hand. Are you seeing the screen that I'm seeing? Or not?
No,
No, I guess you're not. Okay, so if you go to participants and you open the screen, raise your hand is at the bottom there.
Ah,
maybe the screens are different depending on if you're using the mobile app, using a computer app, or the browser. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
I
have that
think-
option in mine.
I think it's an option in participants. When you
Well,
click
mine
on
is separate.
participants,
Yeah. Okay.
you get the names of all the people that are in the meeting. You get their microphone, you get their camera, whether it's on or off, right? Is
Right.
everybody seeing the same thing? And then at the bottom of that, participants that I opened up is invite, mute me, and lower hand. Does anybody else have that?
no, I don't have it.
That's in participants, you said?
Under participants,
Yeah.
you click on participants.
Yep.
It's to the left of chat on my computer.
Okay.
And if you click on that, there's 5 people participating.
Yep.
And you see their names.
Right.
Well, at the bottom of my participant that's open, I have invite, mute me, and lower hand. And do you see in my participants, I have my hand raised?
Mhm. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I see that in yours. In mine, when I click on that screen, I have invite, mute
You're a
all,
host.
unmute all, and then if I click on the ellipses, then it gives me a drop down.
That's because you're a host.
Yeah, okay. And I can
Yeah.
lower all hands as a host. It gives me the opportunity to lower all the hands, or I can. Yeah, you're right. So I'm the
Yeah,
host.
you
I
put
have
your
these
hand up.
different options.
Yeah, Ray put his hand up.
I have to put it up physically?
Yeah,
No,
but
you
also
put it up on your
the
app.
You-
You raised your hand.
You raised your electronic hand. Did you know that?
I see under my name, next to my name is mute and more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then how did you just raise your hand? Because you did it.
I raise it physically.
No, you've got it raised electronically too.
Really?
So
Yeah,
maybe you click on more.
I just lowered it for you.
More.
The
Okay,
question
I do.
is-
It says next, what popped up was rename.
Yeah, that's what happened to mine as well. So
Well,
Rename.
somehow you raised your hand.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
your electronic hand.
Where is
Well,
it?
I can see that we're going to have to
Raise
look.
hand. Oh, yeah. Okay.
We're going to have probably some people who can't find that as easily as others. It seems like
I
there's.
saw, it says raise hand, and when you click on it, lower hand. So you have raise hand.
Oh, you just did it. Yeah,
I got it.
you got it. And what
Yeah.
is it? It's on your name? It's on your name there, huh?
Yeah, it's on my name.
It might also be on your picture.
Yours is on there too, Richard.
See, I don't have that on mine when I do that. I have a green arrow on my name, but then
Yeah, I see that.
yeah, but yeah, I don't have the raise hand option on my when I go into my name. If I look at animate, no, that's annotate. That's not animate. Let me see more.
I've got this reactions button where I can do this.
Yeah.
The bigger the hand, it's a thumbs up, or I can do.
When I've been a participant, I've had that button in the past, but I don't see it here as a host for
Okay.
some reason.
All
Anyway,
right.
all right. Well, the more you know. So let's see. What am I doing here? Oh, why am I doing animate? Okay. Don't know why I have this thing.
You have a pencil out there.
Yeah, I don't know why it's
Can
doing
you
it. Let me
write
see.
something for us or
Yeah.
draw a picture?
I'll put thank you, everybody.
Hey, how are you doing that? That's cool.
Yeah,
Annotation.
Annotations?
thanks. Yeah, if you go here to, where'd I go? Yeah, annotate up here. Yep.
I don't have that.
Yeah, and I
That's
forgot
cool.
that so at the very top, you have the menu bar and the functions bar. And so you have, next to the pause share, you have annotates.
Not on my screen. I'm on a
Yeah.
MacBook.
Okay.
Well, that's because you're not a co-host, but right now you are. Maybe you can see it now, Lana.
Okay, so I pick. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for.
Look at this menu bar up here, or it's kind of functions bar. And
You
go
are
to
using enhanced encryption, meeting information, enhanced encryption. I'm viewing Alberto's screen, view options.
Huh.
That's the window, exit full screen, annotate.
annotate.
Yay.
View options, yeah.
But I clicked annotate. Oh, and then I have to.
And at the very top, if you look at, if you see the ellipses and where it says more, that's where you can click on chat. So if I were to include chats, then a chat room, a Zoom group chat window pops up, and I can send messages to everyone. And then you might see a notification to you, and that says hello, right? And then this is where it says to at the bottom, that's where you have the drop down. It's default to everyone, or you can click on it, and then the participants are listed on it. So I can send a message to, to Reinhard or to Elena or to Dave, Richard, and and even if someone's presenting, that's where if you have more than one organizer or a leadership team that's running the meeting, you can communicate between each other, so that you can say, hey, would you want to, as opposed to using audio, you could say, hey, Richard, would you contact David Shee to see if he's okay, and if he's having problems getting in, and then no one sees that, unless you don't mind people seeing it, then you just type it in. So yeah. So yes, exactly, Elena. That's how you do it. So I just got a message straight from Elena, and so that's what the group chat looks like. And again, it can be effective for the reasons I mentioned earlier, and that's about the essentials. So let me see.
Reinhard.
There we go. And let me get
Just so
my
you don't feel
eraser.
left out. Just so you don't feel,
And
I just made you a co-host, so you don't feel left out, Reinhard.
there it is. Okay. Anyway, any questions?
We won't do that. We'll have just certain people in our meeting, our annual meeting, that will have that responsibility. So don't worry, you won't have to worry about that.
No, I won't. I know you're there.
Are we going to be advertising that at the annual meeting there's going to be some features like the two different presentations from the mayors and the Wall Lin video to encourage people to want to participate?
I don't believe that would be good. I think it's easier to keep it as simple as possible,
Hmm.
just to get through the annual meeting the first time.
I agree with you.
Well,
Any
with that,
further questions?
Alana,
Elena, I have a question. Why is your picture so small? Only a third of our size.
Because it's a photograph, it's not live video. And the reason it's not live video was one of the Zoom meetings that I've gone to talks about environmental issues with regard to cyberspace and how a tremendous amount of energy is used with the video. And if it's not really necessary, it's better to just do a picture. So that's why I did that.
And who are the two beautiful ladies to the left and right
This
of
was
you?
in Turkmenistan at the Mari Library.
Ah,
So let's see, I could go down here. Oh, come here. Why is it not? I was trying to find the thing where I could turn my video on again. So you could see start video. Okay, there. So there I am live.
yes, I see you.
Okay. But I was being environmentally conscious.
And actually, to that point, I've been in meetings where there are more than 50 people in them, and what they recommend is unless there's a reason for you to be live, to I don't know, demonstrate something on the screen, they encourage you to use to shut off your video, your computer video, or even on your phone, and then it'll either be a black screen, or if you have a picture. So your picture is registered with your Zoom profile. So in Zoom, even if you have the free membership
Hey, there's Dave.
or otherwise, you can set up a picture in your profile. And when you turn off the computer video, your profile picture will replace it like Elena had. And that's a good way for the bandwidth of Zoom, to operate more effectively, more efficiently. It just depends on on the account that the person who's running the meeting has. When you have Zoom Pro, you can have a lot of people on them. Has a lot larger bandwidth. But if I'm not familiar with the one that you guys mentioned earlier with the $15 a month, I'm not sure what
on the Pro.
yeah, I'm not sure what the bandwidths are on those, but this is something to look into. But when I run meetings, if it's going to be a discussion, I ask people to put on their video, because there's a difference between talking on the phone, as there's a difference between emailing or texting and looking someone in the eye, right? And you can use Zoom effectively